He seemed like the perfect neighbor. Every morning he would step outside his small suburban house, adjust his crisp shirt, and flash a polite smile at anyone passing by. Children waved at him and their parents nodded in acknowledgement. He mowed his lawn meticulously, watered his flowers with a gentle care, and even helped elderly neighbors carry groceries without being asked. On the surface, everything about him screamed friendliness, order, and normalcy. But deep down, something didn't sit right. There were subtle signs that no one paid attention to. The way he never really engaged in small talk, how he always seemed to watch more than he spoke, and a certain stillness in his eyes that hinted at hidden thoughts. Neighbors occasionally commented on his odd habits. The way he shut his blinds every evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, or how he would step outside at the oddest hours, sometimes late at night, sometimes in the early pre-dawn hours, glancing around as if checking for someone or something. A few kids whispered to each other about hearing noises, soft thuds, occasional murmurs, but dismissing it as the imagination of young minds seemed logical. Still, the air around his house carried a tension that could not be ignored. There was an invisible weight, a silent warning that everything was not as it seemed. Even the mailman who delivered to the neighborhood for years admitted feeling uneasy when dropping parcels at his door. It wasn't about paranoia or hasty judgment. It was an instinct, the kind that gnaws quietly at your mind, whispering that appearances can be deceptive. And while neighbors carried on with their mundane lives, unknowingly close to something terrifying, the quiet of the neighborhood remained untouched. Only the one who observed carefully, who noticed the minutiae, the shadow in the window, the occasional heavy footsteps late at night, the unexplained items being brought in and out, could sense that a story far darker than ordinary suburban life was hiding just behind the familiar facade of a friendly neighbor. In that peaceful street, where life seemed simple and safe, a story was about to unfold. A story that would expose how closely evil can hide behind a polite smile, and how the ordinary can sometimes conceal the unimaginable. For months, the neighbor's behavior had been quietly unsettling. Every morning, like clockwork, he would perform the same routine: watering his small garden, fixing the mailbox, or rearranging items in his garage. Neighbors watched, some admiring the discipline, others secretly uneasy about the rigid repetition. But at night, the house came alive in a way that no one understood. The faint sound of movement echoed from the basement. Heavy thuds, scraping noises, and sometimes low, almost human whispers would float through the walls. Those who were awake late at night occasionally reported seeing shadows move past the blinds. Even when the lights inside the house were off, children began to talk quietly among themselves, exchanging small details about odd occurrences. The family across the street swore they saw him carrying boxes in the middle of the night. Others mentioned the scent of something unusual, faint yet distinct, lingering around the house. Despite all these signs, no one had concrete proof. No one wanted to jump to conclusions. Suspicion lingered like a shadow over the block, an invisible tension that made people hesitant to get too close. Meanwhile, the neighbor's outward behavior remained impeccable. He would wave politely, attend community gatherings, and laugh at casual jokes. He maintained a facade so convincing that even the most observant would hesitate to accuse him of anything sinister. And yet, every subtle inconsistency added up. The rapid shutting of the blinds, the unlit basement windows, the way he avoided certain neighbors without explanation. People started to notice patterns. He never invited anyone inside, always kept his distance, and seemed to have a schedule that no one could understand. Then came the whispers, small murmurs between neighbors about strange deliveries, about items being brought in and taken out at odd hours. Some dismissed them as gossip. Others grew wary, their intuition warning them that something was not right. The tension in the air thickened with each passing day, a creeping unease that made the neighborhood feel less like home and more like a stage for something hidden, dark, and potentially dangerous, unseen by the community. The basement remained a mystery, the heart of the unknown. What lay behind that locked door? What secrets were being kept in silence away from prying eyes? As neighbors debated quietly among themselves, the reality was simple. The ordinary life of the perfect neighbor hid in extraordinary darkness, waiting to be discovered. The tension in the neighborhood reached its peak one chilly autumn evening. For months, rumors had quietly circulated. The strange noises, the occasional glimpses of shadows, the inexplicable comings and goings late at night. No one had concrete proof, But the unease had grown so intense that the residents could no longer ignore it. A sense of collective curiosity and fear spread among them, and whispers turned into discussions at local gatherings, grocery stores, and over fences. People began to notice small, previously dismissed details: the constant noise of moving boxes, the faint smell of chemicals wafting from the basement, and the eerie absence of normal life sounds from the house after dark. It was then that an anonymous tip finally reached the local police department. The caller was cautious, whispering fears that sounded almost like a confession in itself. Someone had seen too much, heard too much, and feared what might be hidden behind that unassuming front door. The police, trained to investigate the unknown, took the tip seriously. They arrived the following evening with careful planning, their approach quiet, calculated, and professional. The neighborhood watched from a distance, heartbeats synchronized in tension, every resident holding their breath, silently praying the ordinary facade of their street was not about to shatter. As the officers approached the house, the neighbor greeted them calmly, his perfect smile unchanged. "Good evening, officers," he said politely, hiding any hint of what might lie beneath. The police, aware of the potential danger, requested permission to investigate the basement. The man hesitated ever so slightly, just a flicker almost imperceptible, before nodding. But the moment he turned, the officers could feel the atmosphere shift. There was a heavy silence, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. The basement door creaked ominously as it opened, revealing a staircase that led into darkness. Flashlights cut through the shadows, illuminating a scene that no one had imagined. Stacked boxes, old furniture, and seemingly ordinary household items filled the room. But beneath the surface, the evidence of long-hidden secrets became horrifyingly clear. There were journals, detailed notes, and photographs, all meticulously organized yet chilling in their content. The items suggested a pattern of deception, manipulation, and criminal activity that had been carefully concealed from the outside world. Each discovery deepened the sense of disbelief and horror among the officers, as if they had stumbled into a narrative straight out of a nightmare. Neighbors watched from the street, their minds racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Could they have noticed the subtle signs earlier? And most frighteningly, what would have happened if no tip had ever been made? The basement was no longer just a physical space. It had become a symbol of the hidden darkness that can exist even in the most ordinary places, behind the most friendly faces. Every item found in that room told a story, each detail weaving a tapestry of secrets that had remained invisible for years. By the time the investigation was complete, the neighborhood was forever changed. The perfect neighbor's facade had crumbled, revealing a reality that was both shocking and terrifying. Residents realized that evil can hide in plain sight, and that sometimes the ordinary masks the unimaginable. The basement, once a silent witness to hidden deeds, had finally been exposed to the light, and the truth was far more disturbing than anyone had imagined. The discovery in the basement was just the beginning. As the police continued to sift through the collection of hidden items, the horrifying depth of the neighbor's secrets slowly unfolded. At first glance, it seemed like a storage room filled with old furniture and forgotten belongings. But a closer inspection revealed journals filled with meticulous notes, records of behaviors, observations of the neighborhood, and cryptic references that hinted at long-term plans. Each page sent chills down the spine of anyone who dared to read. The photographs pinned to the walls were even more disturbing. They depicted individuals in seemingly ordinary situations, yet the subtle framing suggested surveillance and obsession. This wasn't just a collection of secrets. It was evidence of someone who had been carefully documenting the lives of others, blending the mundane with the sinister. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. There was a calculated coldness in the arrangement of the room. Each item, each photograph placed deliberately, as if the person behind it had anticipated the moment of discovery. Among the items were personal belongings that could not possibly have been acquired innocently, letters, keys, and objects taken without consent, hinting at illegal activity, perhaps even criminal intent. It became evident that the neighbor's outward persona, the friendly, polite man who helped with groceries and smiled at everyone, was nothing but a meticulously crafted mask. The real story, hidden in shadows, was far more chilling than anyone had imagined. For the neighbors who watched from a distance, The realization was terrifying. They had walked past the house countless times, exchanged greetings and shared smiles, oblivious to the darkness concealed behind that ordinary facade. Every nod, every polite wave, every friendly gesture was now tinged with a sinister undertone. How could someone so seemingly ordinary harbor such secrets? How had they failed to notice the subtle signs, the late-night movements, the strange noises, the shadows flitting behind the blinds? The basement had become a revelation, exposing the thin line between appearances and reality, between the ordinary and the terrifying. The climax came when a hidden compartment within the basement was discovered. Inside were items that directly tied the neighbor to ongoing criminal activity. Evidence of stalking, manipulation, and potentially violent intent emerged, painting a picture of calculated malevolence. The realization struck everyone present. The man they had known for years was not merely eccentric or odd. He was someone capable of actions they had only imagined in stories or crime novels. The community's sense of security shattered in an instant. The very foundation of what they considered normal life had been infiltrated by someone who had blended in perfectly, exploiting trust and familiarity to conceal something unspeakably dark. As the investigation continued, it became clear that the neighbors' secrets were not isolated. They represented a larger pattern, a hidden layer of reality that few ever see. The story of the basement became a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil often hides in plain sight, masked by charm and civility. Residents would forever carry the memory of the friendly neighbor who smiled and nodded, never imagining the depths of darkness that existed just beneath the surface. The climax of the discovery left everyone with lingering questions, a mix of fear and fascination, and a chilling understanding that appearances can be deceiving, sometimes fatally so. By the end of the night, the basement had been thoroughly documented, evidence cataloged, and the neighbor taken into custody. But for the community, the psychological impact lingered far longer than any criminal proceedings could address. The ordinary street, once peaceful and mundane, had revealed the extraordinary darkness that can dwell within, hidden behind the most convincing masks of normalcy. Even after the neighbor was taken into custody and the basement had been emptied of its disturbing contents, the neighborhood was never the same. The story of the secret basement spread quickly, leaving every resident with a lingering unease. People began to reevaluate everything they had seen, every smile, every polite greeting, every seemingly ordinary interaction. How many other perfect neighbors might be hiding unimaginable secrets behind closed doors? The line between trust and suspicion had blurred, and an invisible tension settled over the streets. The residents who had once walked freely, greeting one another with carefree smiles, now looked at their surroundings differently. They became hyper-aware of the sounds around their homes, the shadows flitting past windows, and even the seemingly trivial behavior of those they encountered daily. Children, once innocently running through yards, now hesitated to approach unknown figures, and adults quietly wondered about the stories concealed within the homes around them. The sense of normalcy had been replaced by a quiet vigilance, a psychological mark left by the chilling revelation. Even the police officers involved in the investigation admitted that the case had an unsettling effect. The meticulous planning, the detailed documentation of neighbors' lives, and the hidden layer of malevolence left them questioning how easily evil can masquerade as ordinary. The basement was more than a physical space. It had become a symbol of human deception, a reminder that appearances are rarely what they seem. The neighborhood had learned a harsh lesson, that danger is often hidden in the most familiar places, and that vigilance, intuition, and attention to subtle details can sometimes be the only defense against the unknown. Despite the fear and the lingering shock, the story of the secret basement also became a point of reflection. Residents discussed how trust is given too freely, how people can hide entire lives behind perfectly crafted facades, and how important it is to pay attention to instinctual warnings. Conversations around the neighborhood shifted from casual gossip to discussions of safety, awareness, and the unpredictability of human behavior. What had started as a quiet suburban street had transformed into a community, bonded by a shared experience of uncovering the dark truth lurking behind an ordinary life. And yet, even with the police intervention, questions remained. What had driven the neighbor to conceal such disturbing secrets? How many lives had been unknowingly affected? Could anyone truly understand the mind that meticulously crafted such a facade? The story left an open-ended tension, a psychological unease that lingered, hinting that not all mysteries can be fully explained, and not all darkness is fully revealed. The basement had been discovered, but the psychological impact of its secrets continued to resonate, leaving a haunting mark on the community. Finally, the story concludes with a chilling thought for the audience, one that invites engagement and reflection. Would you have noticed the subtle signs? Could you have recognized the darkness behind the friendly smile? The tale of the neighbor's secret basement is more than a crime story. It is a reminder that vigilance, observation, and intuition are essential in a world where appearances are deceiving. It is also a call to engage, to question, and to reflect. Comment below what you think might have happened if no one had ever reported the tip. Share your thoughts, your theories, and even your fears. The story does not end with the discovery. It continues in the minds of those who hear it, challenging each viewer to consider what lurks behind the masks people wear every day. The secret basement may now be empty, but its echoes remain. A silent warning, a chilling memory, and an unforgettable story that reminds us all to look closer, question deeper, and never take appearances at face value.